So good morning. Welcome to the Network for College Success kickoff for the fall 2021 school year. We would like to invite you all, again, if you are not a network partner, to join us for this year. We have a listserv that is very robust and we share opportunities that is happening in our field. And we are looking forward to helping our students transition and navigate this school year, both in person and for our students who are also taking classes virtually, helping them with their persistence and graduation goals. So our agenda for the day is that we'll have opening remarks from the Dean of the K-16 unit, which the network is a part of. We'll have a panel discussion with College Bridge coaches from the College and Career for All program. We'll also have some insights from our CBO partners at iMentor, as well as the Urban Assembly. And then we'll have some campus perspective from our partners from CUNY BMCC, as well as CARA, College Access Research and Action. Then we'll have another breakout session where you all be able to reflect and think about ways you can apply some of the conversations we had today to your own organizations. And then we'll give, again, an overview of the upcoming events for the network. Today's topic of discussion is social emotional supports as students return to campus for this fall. And so I'm going to have our opening remarks from Andrea, our dean, a university dean for the CUNY Office of K-16 Initiative.
Thanks, Latiqua. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you. And thanks so much for joining us for our kickoff. We're coming together this morning at yet another critical moment for our city's students and families, navigating the return to classrooms after a year and a half of interrupted learning. Last Monday, tens of thousands of students returned to DOE schools, still grappling with the many ways that the past 2 years have changed their lives, from death, unemployment, unstable housing, and months of academic stagnation. A few weeks earlier, tens of thousands of CUNY students returned to campus or stepped on campus for the first time from the same communities and facing the same challenges. There are already some early indicators that the past 18 months has had a significant impact on the life trajectory of so many students. Here at CUNY, we are seeing enrollment declines this fall at our community colleges, really signaling to us that our most vulnerable students across the city have been disconnected or are uncertain about their futures right now. Across K-16 initiatives, we know that we must rise to meet the challenges of this moment by embracing this opportunity to recognize and break down longstanding barriers to access, look at the ways that we work and what we are working on and how we work together and how that must evolve. Throughout the year, we're centering the voice and leadership of our students, listening deeply to partners across the city. We're looking at ways to unsilo our own work and programs and focusing on unpacking what college and career ready really mean right now at this moment and in the future. Across our programs at K-16, our teams are focused also on what it means to support our students in being successful right now in this challenging school year. We've always known that creating supportive, caring communities where students can be fully known are key to student success. We have many years of experience across all of the organizations that are part of this network and thinking deeply about and demonstrating the power of social emotional supports for student success. Like everything else, of course, the pandemic has amplified and expanded this need. Across the country, schools and college campuses are overwhelmed by the amount of need that students are expressing for mental health services, for housing, food, and other supports. Here in New York City, we know that partnership is a critical asset that we can build on right now to meet these challenges. That's why I'm really excited about the work of the network this coming year and starting today. Today, our presentations will cover a range of things from student anxiety, tools for checking in with students, discussing campus resources around mental health and advisement. And throughout the year, the network is offering events focused on college persistence and success, but also access, all centering the social emotional needs of students as really core to student success. We know that our community here at the network can be a powerful place for shared learning this year at a time when we need to come together and bring our collective wisdom to the biggest challenges our students and organizations have ever faced. I want to thank you for your commitment to this work and to our network community. And I'm really looking forward to continued learning and conversation with all of you this year. So I'm going to stop there so we can get right to it. Thank you again. And I'm going to hand it off back to Latiqua, I think, to get us started for the day.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. We really appreciate your remarks and sharing the future of what we will be doing as a unit. Going to now pass it on to Laura, who will be leading a discussion regarding our College Bridge panel, as well as sharing some highlights of the work that the College and Career Bridge for All is conducting this year.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to be quite brief so we can hear from our bridge coaches as much as possible in the time that we have. But I just want to share a little bit about some of the things that we've seen. I oversee the College and Career Bridge for All program, which is a DOE and CUNY partner program that has been serving 55,000 students who've been graduating out of the DOE in the class of 2021, and they are heading to CUNY, they're heading to SUNY, they are heading to trade schools and all sorts of different career pathways. And we've been working really hard to make sure that they're set up for success this fall. And we are wrapping up with them this week and handing them off to the campuses that are supporting them, as well as all of your CBO support structures that you have. And as we've wrapped up this year, we've been doing a few focus groups. And so I just wanted to share a few broad findings that we've seen as we talk to the coaches who've been helping these students. And then you'll get to hear from the coaches as well. So broadly, we're hearing that students are excited to be returning to in-person classes or going to campuses for the first time. Zoom University is tiring and challenging. I think we have a couple seniors who are like, wait, I would rather just finish this off on Zoom University, as they call it, but a lot of incoming freshmen and sophomores are really excited to be doing in-person classes, which is awesome. And we've also seen that coupled with some vaccine hesitancy and students being concerned about the process of how to get a vaccine or having concerns about getting the vaccine for their own reasons, and some confusion regarding sort of what is required of them as vaccine policy shifted with the FDA approval and over the course of the summer. So that was something that a lot of students were sharing, and is something that in the next couple of weeks, students will continue to need support on. In terms of navigating their final chances to upload their vaccine proof of vaccination. And then we also saw more than we have in the last few years that in sort of this moment of great uncertainty and in a world of greater uncertainty, students are asking different questions about the value of college, and we're holding off to make their college decisions longer than they had in the past. So we saw a huge rush in August of students being interested in registering and enrolling, and that they had waited a long time, and sometimes they were flooding the campuses with registration asks and needs right when campuses were trying to close up that cycle. And so we saw this delay, we saw some uncertainty, we saw different questions around why go to college, and it could be that we'll see students who weren't able to register in the fall, but are looking at the fall express programs or at spring enrollment. So those are some of the sort of big picture landscape things that we've seen. And now I really want to pass it to our coaches. So we have 6 coaches with us today. And amongst them, they have experiences at 7 different CUNY campuses. 3 of them transferred themselves from one CUNY community college to a senior college. And they have been working with each with a caseload of about 250 to 300 students in the DOE class of 2021. And so they have experiences that they can share from being students themselves and from supporting all of their students. So I'm going to ask that Latiqua, if we can stop sharing screen and remove the spotlight from me, and let's bring on our coaches. And coaches, I'm going to start by just having you all introduce yourself and say your name, the college you go to, and what types of classes you're taking right now. Are you taking online, hybrid, in-person classes, and how that first couple weeks of classes have gone? And I think that if we all as members of the community are in speaker view, we'll see them as they pop up so that we can be sure we're centering their faces and their voices. So Magdala, I'm going to have you start. And then we'll pass from there. So name, college, and what it's like taking classes right now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Magdala. I recently graduated from Queens College. So the classes that I was taking last semester was online classes because there weren't any classes on campus. But however, I felt comfortable. So if I were to, get back to school, I would say that I would have taken online classes. I did miss campus life a bit, but I think I got used to Zoom University, as Laura had said, some seniors did.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's have Kiani share. And congrats, Magdala, on your graduation.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Kiani. I go to Kingsborough right now, and I am taking a combination of hybrid and in-person classes. I had transferred to Kingsborough last year during the pandemic, so the only option for me last year was online, but now I'm just now getting onto campus because I'm a culinary major, so I have to be on campus to be in the kitchen and cook. So it's a nice transition. I like the campus so far. It's nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Kiani. I didn't realize you were culinary. We'll have to have you help us out at our next in-person events. Irene, let's have you introduce yourself, please.
Morning, everyone. So my name is Irene. I go to Hunter College and mostly all my classes are online, but I do have one hybrid class. So far, everything is good, but for me, the transition took a while to get used to because I am a transfer student from Gutman Community College and it's my first time at Hunter. So that transition of being on campus for like one semester, then the pandemic happening is it took a while to get used to, but so far so good.
Awesome. Thanks, Irene. How about you, Kirsten?
Good morning. My name is Kirsten. I go to Queens College, and right now most of it is Zoom University, as you said. I have one asynchronous class, so basically I teach myself, and then I have one hybrid class.
Awesome. Alma.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Alma and I go to Hunter College. I am currently right now taking online classes, a synchronous and one asynchronous class. For me, it's personally flexible during this pandemic. I will say that it's definitely a lot of work, but I'm working through it.
Awesome. And last but not least, Kiona.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kiana. I also go to Hunter, but I'm on the master's side of things. I'm also in person and online, so it's been a little difficult transitioning back to being in person. Like running around in class is a little bit more difficult than just opening my laptop, but I'm working through it, and it's been kind of fun. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So the 6 of you coaches have been working since June, supporting 300 students each to help them as they are navigating graduation and their post-secondary plan. And on top of it, you're navigating your own sort of graduations and college journeys as well. I'd love to have a few of you share what it's like for you and really what it's been like for your students that you were supporting in terms of getting ready for fall semester and getting set up and stable in fall semester. So if a few of you would be willing to share what it's like going to classes right now for you and your students.
I could start. I would say most of my students are very excited to finally get back on campus. I know they were doing Zoom for this whole year, so they're excited. For me, I was also excited to get back on campus. It was just a little difficult to find the classrooms and stuff. So I know that comes with a little bit of anxiety, as well as my students. I remember after their first day of class, I sent an email out asking how was it and stuff. And many people did have some anxiety of finding classrooms and interacting with people. So that was one of the topics that they went through.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share what it's like taking classes right now for you or for your students?
I can speak on that. So for me, it's a lot more convenient to take my online classes. I've had a couple students who do bring up concerns about taking in-person classes due to either vaccination hesitancy or just the fact that schools, well, the schools that they go to aren't really ensuring their safety. And so that's definitely a big worry for them. However, it's definitely a new experience continuing online classes or Zoom University. Yeah.
Awesome. And I'd love to hear you all share a little bit about what are the things that have been challenging for students, the students that you were working with this summer. What's been a common challenge for them as they are getting started this fall or registering this summer, but especially sort of thinking about here we are in the fall, what are the things that have been hard for them so that we can make sure we're supporting them moving forward?
I can answer that one. So this was a recent concern. Up until the first week of school starting, I still got requests for meetings to talk about when they can schedule classes. And I'm like, the semester has already started. So let's really focus on getting you into the next semester, because I know that for the majority of the summer, a lot of these students have not been getting in touch with an advisor. And then they thought that I was their advisor. So in my emails, I'm saying, hey, I'm your bridge coach. This is what I do. But they think that I'm the person that's going to give them a schedule instantly. And I'm like, that's not how it works. So it was really more of the lack of communication between school and student. Students were just getting emails and they weren't sure where or who it was coming from. So a lot of them thought that somebody would reach out to them and they wouldn't have to go the extra step. So a lot of it was teaching the student how to be independent and not rely on myself, but like advocate for yourself. So it's a lot of like lack of communication with that part. Also the vaccine hesitancy, as Alma said, like that was really hard because a lot of students live in like small spaces as well, and like they don't want to get corona, but they don't know if the vaccine is safe for them. So it's a lot of peer pressure on that was also a challenge.
Yeah.
Irene, you also, oh yeah, Irene or Kian, anyone else want to share?
Kiani, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I was also gonna, I agree with what Kristen said. A lot of students had came up to me with concerns of not hearing back from their college. And it was like weeks before school started, probably like 2 weeks before school started. So students would like make meetings, like virtual meetings with like the office of the like financial aid or whatever they needed to do, and just people wouldn't show up to the meetings, and I would have to like be on the meeting and like help them as best as I could with like with their financial aid or like whatever they needed to do. But then again, it was they needed to get in contact with the school to hear directly from the person who was like in charge. So it was just hard for them. And it was hard for me also to like have somebody reach out to them.
Yeah, I think that's really a common thing among practitioners, right? All of us in the room and all the CBO partners, many of us are here to support students and aren't necessarily part of the direct campus community. And so I think there is a piece of how to support students to access the resources on campus that is something that comes up a lot, and how to encourage them to respond to those emails even when they're confusing and do added outreach. So I think that work is really real. Yeah, Irene, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add on with what Kirsten said, that when they were registering for classes, it was pretty late. So they didn't really like their classes at that point. And then they also wasn't sure what synchronous and asynchronous was. So that was a bit of a struggle for them, because they were like, oh, but I don't want to be in person either. So that was a problem. And also the workload at the first week of school really shocked them, because most of them had 5 classes, and that was something that they weren't used to. So I feel like the workload with the classes was something that really like shocked them.
Yeah, that's really helpful to think about of like how to support students to find what is the right number of classes to register for, and that 5 can feel like a lot. And then what I'm seeing in the chat and what I'm hearing from you all is really some recognition of students, some of them not having landed at college this fall, but wanting to. And so this potential added support to make sure that they land in the spring if that's what they're interested in. I have one more question for the panel, and then we'll open it up to questions in the chat. So if you have questions for the coaches, feel free to put them in the chat. The question for you all coaches is really like, what are the things that you think? We're in a room full of CBO partners and folks that really want to support students. What do you think the things are that all of us as people supporting students need to know and need to do to make sure students get support this year? What do we need to know and do to support students effectively this year?
I can start off by answering. I think that students mostly just want the support of, I guess, figuring out their place in college, whether that's what major they'll be doing, or because students have no idea how college is like. They just think that a schedule is just given to them just like that. They don't have to choose a major. So I think some students may just need support with just figuring out what they want to do in their career, what majors are offered at a college, because they'll just apply to a college and not know that the major's there. So I think that's one of the things a lot of my students were trying to figure out, before they got their classes and their schedule with that, just their major and how they can do that. So if they can have that support at least, that would be great.
One thing I would say definitely, excuse my voice, a lot of students came asking to me, like, what is Blackboard? I know about CUNY first, but what is Blackboard? What is DegreeWorks? What is like Rate My Professor? A lot of students, I feel like, come into, especially into the CUNY program, not understanding that CUNY has many navigation portals that are very helpful to students, and they have various websites that can really privilege a student when deciding about classes and majors. So I feel like one of the things that should be more talked about is definitely our navigation portals and how they work. I feel like as you get further into CUNY, they're more noticeable and you hear people talking about them and you get more interested. But as a freshman, you don't really hear about things like Blackboard. I know that was one of the problems with my students. They were like, I don't know how to access my classes. And like, oh, just use Blackboard. And they're like, what's that? Uh, so I feel like that's one of the things that should be a little bit more talked about.
I love that. Any final thoughts on this? And then folks can put questions in the chat. Any other
I
coaches
can
want to
add
share?
one thing. I noticed with the students that did answer my emails, there was a sense of some taking initiative, but a lot of them lacked readiness, like college readiness. There was a lot of like mentally speaking, they just graduated. Some graduated over Zoom, YouTube Live, some in person, but I don't think they really grasp that they have entered college and they don't know what to expect. So like I think in the college bridge service, like should we start a little bit earlier than June? I think that they should be aware of like who we are earlier so that they're like, okay, like I'll look out from your emails because they just graduated. And they're not really checking their email. So they don't really care who we are until like at the end of August. I mean, at the end of July. So like, it's like we need to try to prepare them mentally because with the whole pandemic, it makes it so much harder. And there's a loss of like interaction. And because we're home throughout the whole year, like there's like a communication that needs to be instilled in them. They don't know. Like I had students that wrote me an email in the subject line. Like some of them are not ready to write emails. And I'm like, you have to email your professor. You cannot email them like this. Like, so I was teaching them how to write emails, how to make resumes if you want to, like do things like that. There's a lot of that like life training skills that they need to learn as well. So aside from like being like prepared with Blackboard and stuff, I'm just saying like life skills, like a lot of them were not ready for it. Like they weren't ready to do things on their own, as I said before. And they wanted me to do things for them that I know was not in my job description. such as telling them what to do when I'm only here for advice. Like they wanted me to make the decision for them. And I'm like, you would have to be ready to do this yourself. So a lot of life training skills before they graduate high school would be appreciated.
Yeah, I love that. And I think probably for all the practitioners in the room, it's resonant of sometimes students asking for support on things that we thought that they might have already had some access to. And I think the reality that especially in this moment, these things that we know students have had support on in the past or had sort of stability on in the past really have been thrown up in the air in a lot of ways. And how do we make sure, I think a lot about how do we make sure that students understand what resources they have access to and so that they can take full advantage of them. So to your point, Kristen, of like, we're out here ready to support. How do we make sure that students take advantage of that? We have just a minute for any questions. I see one in the chat about whether students had the choice in terms of taking in-person classes or virtual. And so curious for you all, that's a question from Kip, from Chris at Kip, of did the students have the option to take in-person classes but wanted to take virtual? And so did you feel like you had choices in that?
I will say that I've had, students do have the option to take in-person classes or virtual. However, because when you're enrolling, it's a first come, first serve. So classes get taken up really quick. And I did have a couple instances where students did not want to go to, did not want to take any online classes, and there weren't any more space for in-person classes. So that was definitely an issue there. I also had students who didn't want to take in-person classes, but there weren't any online classes available. So in a way, they kind of got the short end of the stick. But I think that it's definitely, you can see the effects of the pandemic there impacting the decisions that students make. Even at this one instance where a student said that he does not want to take in-person classes or online. Well, he didn't want to take online classes. And he says, and all his classes ended up being online. And he mentioned to me that if he were to take it again, he wasn't going to be any more interested because for a lot of people, online classes can be a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's a lot of truth in that, that there's like access and choice, but then in reality, things can get challenging when you, especially if you're later to register. I think we're at time, and I see a question from Liz in the chat that maybe Kirsten, I think you were the one answering that. So if you can look at the chat and answer Liz, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I just saw it. I was going to answer in the chat, but really quickly, it does feel like you're teaching yourself. I have a psych, because I'm a psych major, so I have a psych statistics class. So like we have the homework on like a platform on a website, and then you have to watch the lectures. So you have to have the stamina to sit there and watch the lectures yourself because they're recorded. So basically you are teaching yourself, because my professor is not that great at explaining. So no, I don't really listen to the lectures all the time, but I am using the homework platform. So I am reading, taking notes, and teaching myself. So yeah, you are basically the whole semester doing that.
Which I think really speaks to this need that students are facing is that there's more and more being asked of them as they're navigating this process, and more self-advocacy that they're having to leverage, and that process is really complicated as they're balancing even more factors in their personal life and in their academic life than they have in the past. So with that, I know we're over time. If we can give a round of applause to the coaches. Thank you so much, coaches, for all of your work with College and Career Bridge for all this summer and for sharing your expertise here. Best of luck in your academic journeys, and we will be certainly in touch frequently, but I am so grateful for all your hard work and support and for sharing your expertise today. So with that, I will pass it back to Latifah.
Thank you again to our College Bridge team and our amazing coaches. Please give them a virtual round of applause, reactions, all the things. So we're going to keep our program moving. Just going to share my screen again for continuity purpose with the recording. Our next presenters will be Stephanie from Urban Assembly and Shakina from iMentor. So I'm going to pass on the screen to them to share their presentation about how they're engaging students this fall.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. I am going to kick us off with our conversation around how we're working together to support wellness and social emotional health for our students. So I am Shakina Taylor Wright. I am the Senior Director of Advising and Post-Secondary Success at iMentor. I've been at iMentor since about 2018, and I really focus on building our strategy around how we work with mentors to support post-secondary success for our students. And I became interested in college advising after I had been volunteering as a mentor. So this is work that is deeply, deeply important to me. Steph?
Thanks, Shakina. I'm Steph. I'm the Deputy Director of Alumni Success at the Urban Assembly. First in my family to earn a degree. After college, I taught writing while running and editing a lit mag. I pivoted to this sort of alumni success work about 8 years ago. And since coming to the UA, I've been managing the texting program and the summer bridge program. And today I'll just end by saying Shakina and I are going to have some pauses for questions throughout. And we just ask that you write any questions you have in the chat. If we don't answer them, we are going to address them after. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions.
Awesome. So like I mentioned, I work for iMentor. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are a whole school model. We partner with public high schools and communities where the majority of students will be first-gen college graduates. We match students with mentors during their junior year of high school, and then we support them through their first 2 years post-high school. Since it's about 1999, we've matched nearly 38,000 students across countries with mentors. This year, we're serving around 10,000 students across 14 states. So we have 4 direct service regions: New York, Chicago, Baltimore, and the Bay Area. And then we serve additional students through our partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters of America.
So the Urban Assembly is a family of 23 schools in the Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn. We provide direct coaching there and professional development to the school-based staff and administrators. We graduate about 1,500 students a year with the goal that by age 26, they will have earned a post-secondary credential of some sort and will be earning at least 20% above the living wage. So that's partially our main goal here. More recently, the UA is a model provider, which essentially just means we're offering expertise to other organizations and districts who are trying to implement specialized programs inside their schools. Most of the work that I'm doing at the UA is with, as I mentioned, summer bridge and texting, the latter of which I'm going to be sort of drawing from as Shakina and I talk about how we respond to student needs. I'm not going to give a big overview of our texting campaign at the UA because our goal today is to identify engagement techniques that you guys can fold into your own programming, no matter what that programming may be. The question that I think both iMentor and the UA ask ourselves, the question that creates innovative programming and meaningful partnerships is, how do we create an environment that our students will deem safe enough for them to reach out for help when they need it? So for context, at the UA, we're texting about 3,000, maybe 4,000 alumni from the last couple graduating classes. One thing that we do to create that safe environment is we check in with them regularly, about once every 6 weeks without an ask. And that's the important thing. I want to emphasize that this is really just a quick check-in. So a holiday or birthday text, or even some sort of confidence booster like you see here, or something witty or funny, maybe a fun fact. Alumni have told us anecdotally and through surveys that we give to them that they need people in their lives who don't always need something from them. So think about how often we're asking our students for stuff: their parents' tax returns, their schedules, their time. So sometimes, even though we're trying to help, our help can feel overwhelming. So the gentle check-in, like the one here, it's just a quick nod in their direction. And what we find is that in the moment, it often reminds these students that they need help with something else, right? That they might as well ask now. I've been thinking about this. They're checking in with me. Let me just throw out a question. And over time, students stay responsive and reach out to us for help even before we come to them. And that's the main goal, right? I mean, all of us here know that this is a big win when they do this, because the ultimate barrier, or one of the ultimate barriers to success, is not asking for help when you need it. So that doesn't mean, of course, that we give them all the answers. Here you can see that a student has likely asked where the financial aid office is, a question that we get all the time. And I've told them in this case, please just Google it, right? Notice, something like that can sound snarky, right? So we try to use emoticons or emojis to alleviate some of that unintentional snarkiness. And overall, whether consciously or not, students will see, because of this kind of behavior, that they too are problem solvers, right? They'll start to believe it and will become more proactive on the ground on campus, right? We've already talked a little bit, and some of the coaches talked about the need for students to advocate for themselves, right? So, engagement like this and text like this help remind them that they can do it themselves too if they really need to. They have the skills. And so, speaking of on the ground, right? So we all know that campuses are really hard to navigate when you're a first gen college student. When we're texting them, we share in these moments with them. The FAFSA is not intuitive, and Blackboard can be difficult to set up, for example, especially when you're sharing a computer with your siblings, or when your Wi-Fi is slow, or when your parents maybe don't want to share their tax returns with you. So how do we help our students just not shut down? And the answer that we've found is we share in those frustrations. We help them understand that it is not you, right? College is a business. The FAFSA is a legal document. Blackboard is a flawed piece of software. So when students come to understand that it's not them, it's all of us, they grow confidence and they don't shy away from asking for help. At the end of the day, they want human connection. This is a text from an iMentor student, actually. I wonder if someone wants to come off mute and just read it out loud, because I do think it's important to read. And if someone doesn't come off in a few seconds, I'll just pick someone.
I'll go ahead and go.
Thank you.
I know I haven't been responding, but I appreciate you guys so much. I'm not taking classes right now, ha ha ha, but I'm joining on an electrician's trade. My first semester out of high school was actually trash, and I had a lot of bad things happen. I'm honestly glad I didn't take classes, because I actually had time to get my life together and work on me. Sorry if this isn't what y'all expected from me, but I just didn't want to pursue the college option for now. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. When we started partnering with iMentor on texting, which was a few months ago, which has been so much fun, I'll say, I couldn't wait for the moment that they got a text like this. I just, when we started working together, we talked a lot about how we could help iMentor students reach out more, not only to their advisors, but to their mentors. And so they ended up building this texting script with more of those check-ins that I just talked about, more of those moments of connections. And trust me, this is just one of the many examples that students started opening up to them. I've gotten a couple emails from Shakina and Brennan and people there saying, like, look at what's going on. So and I was hoping and had a feeling that this would happen, mainly because like a while ago, we sent a survey to our alumni. We usually send them surveys every December and May. And one of the questions was, which text do you find most helpful to you? And their options they had 4 options: the ones that give resources, the ones that give reminders, the ones that give information, and then finally the funny or holiday text that you send. And students or alumni were allowed to only choose one option. And so 20% ended up choosing the funny or the holiday ones over all others, the ones that on the surface appear to be least functional, right? So the last few years have been rough for our young people. And, sometimes all they want to know is that someone's thinking about them. They want human connection. It's something you guys can give them in person, right? But it's also something you can give to them over text, over email, and over Zoom.
As Steph mentioned, so many of our students are craving human connection, and that is what iMentor truly believes makes a difference. Over 80% of our pairs who are matched in our high school program stay connected after high school. And so when we think about supporting students, we really do think about the different roles that adults can play in their lives, especially during this crucial time, right? So thinking about being a thought partner. Part of becoming an adult is figuring out what we value, what we think, who we are. And so having more adults who can be supportive, who can listen, who can encourage and challenge ideas with respect and caring is super, super important for our young people. Project manager, as Steph said, and as our coaches highlighted, there are so many tasks, there's so much paperwork. And so helping students take advantage of the existing services is really important. Sometimes our students just need cheerleaders, right? Sometimes they just need someone who can encourage, who can recognize their new accomplishments, who can celebrate their success, who can help motivate those students. And again, we think about that connection, right? And so as students and young people, as their aspirations take shape, finding opportunities to help them build their network or connect them to our existing ones is really important for us. Next step. And so we know that our young people are coming to us with a variety of needs, and it can be overwhelming as practitioners to navigate through the sheer amount of need, as well as the variety, right? So some of our students are coming to us needing support around food and housing insecurity. Another student may be struggling with academics, coursework, Blackboard, those systems that can be really challenging. Another student may be having issues with mental health, right? And so there is so much that we know is going on in the lives of our young people. And so what we really focus on is how do we keep them connected to us, to their mentors? And how do we really understand and utilize information so we understand what they're going through? A lot of times in our work with students, we can only respond to what's in front of us. And so sometimes the individual work is all we think about. And so the challenge that I think all of us, particularly in the nonprofit space, really think about is how do we build our work based on data as opposed to anecdotes and assumptions, right? And so at iMentor, we're constantly getting information from students, giving information to students. So as Steph mentioned, texting students information. We also do surveys. We're looking at NSC data to understand like historical patterns of persistence and completion. So we sort of really figure out who do we target and who do we support. And then, thinking about those systems of support, right? When we think about particularly the last 18 months, the variety of need, we want to really be conscious about the ways that we can meet those needs. And so for us, we think about what is our core programming, the things that we can offer to all of our students. And so those elements for us have to be preventative, they have to be proactive. So texting is an example. We also offer workshops, we offer financial incentives like emergency funds, and students have requested everything from money to pay some of these CUNY hold fees to money for books, for housing. And so that's really important for us. And then we think about additional programming, right? When our students need even more, how can we meet those needs? So we might create targeted interventions for groups of students, like students who want to transfer colleges, or students who want to enroll for the first time. So we think about how can we be responsive when it comes to that second layer of programming. And then finally, when we think about our highest need students, the students, like I mentioned, who are food and housing insecure, students who are dealing with multiple pandemics, mental health, right? We try to be proactive in finding those external partnerships and referrals. It's important as organizations that we recognize what we can and cannot do when it comes to students, because oftentimes we might go into the mission creep, right? And like we can't be all things to all students. And so when we can't meet those needs, how do we create more spaces like this one to connect to each other and strengthen the support that we're able to offer collectively to our young people? Finally, we just wanted to end with some student voice. I'm happy to read this one. This is from a pair in our PSP program. The moments I really needed my mentor support were the start of each semester when I would feel insecure. I would just tell her a word vomit of everything in my head and how I was feeling. And she would tell me that I am capable, that I can do it, that I've been through similar things in the past and that she's seen my growth. She's always there to remind me of that. So again, just really thinking about the importance of connecting and being there for students as much as we possibly can. We ended on time. Look at us.
We are just a well-oiled machine, Shakina. So we have some time for questions. I somehow lost the chat. I don't know. I have 8 million things open. So I don't know if Shakina, you have access or if someone else wants to take a look while I'm looking. But I thought I saw at least one question in there.
Yes, there is a question. And I think it might have been answered by the presentation, but it was, what is the core of the work and support that you provide as an alumni deputy director?
Yeah, so like at the UA, the core of the support is the texting program. And it's essentially to try to boost their confidence so that they can acquire the navigation skills that they're going to need. One of the things I mentioned in the breakout room earlier today was like, we're supporting 4,000 students with one person, right? We have one texter. And so she's not offering that kind of like one-on-one advising through text very much. She's really just doing a lot of the social emotional support and the help to show students how to navigate on their own. Any other questions? Oh, finally, I found my chat. Yay.
There is a question. It says, it mentioned stuff that you send your student surveys. What platform do you use for creating the surveys?
We are a Google Suite family at the UA. So we use Google Forms. And then what we do is we embed the link in Rebrandly so that we could track the clicks. So for example, the stat I gave about the 20% of students, preferring the funny or holiday texts, we had about 800 students take that survey, and we were able to see that only about 850 to 900 clicked on it. So that's pretty great, right? Like if they clicked on the survey, they took it. And again, and we do that through text rather than email. And Shakina, you guys do surveys too, right? How do you push your surveys out?
Yeah, we do surveys as well. We usually use Qualtrics. And this is the first summer, working with Steph, that we actually did a short survey. Many of us know, like we use surveys a lot to collect key information, and sometimes they can be really overwhelming. And this was the first time we were like, we're gonna just do 3 questions. And we got really solid responses. We were able to actually use that information to respond to students right away versus like having to wait, for the regression analytics. And so really thinking about how do you get information from students, quickly and easily, and information you can act on, because sometimes data we collect isn't always data we can use in the moment.
Yeah, the fact that, you want to create the questions in a way that will give you things that you can act on, it's like super important, right? I mean, we put a lot of time into how we're even asking a question, especially if we're only asking 3 questions. We got to make sure that we're actually applying the kind of social and emotional well-being techniques that we use in text, right? That applies to survey questions when you're trying to communicate with students, because again, you're trying to get them to engage with the survey question and take the survey. So that becomes important too.
There's a question in the chat about, are our texts centralized, or does each mentor text directly? That's a great question. So we have program staff, so our program managers, they manage caseloads of our students that they connect with. And so we text all of our students. We also text all of our mentors, which we didn't really talk about. But mentors and students connect with each other all on their own all the time, right? So we ask mentors and students to check in usually once a week, meet virtually once a month. But one of the cool things about texting is that sometimes we'll text a student. An example is like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that your fall plans are going to work out, right? And a student might say, I'm at a 5. And then a program manager can actually text their mentor to say, hey, Steph's feeling at a 5. Could you check in on her and see like, what could we do to get her to an 8, right? And I think that's sort of how we really started to understand the power of texting and particularly the power of that one-on-one support, which we're able to provide through our mentors.
Can we give another virtual round of applause for our presenters? Thank you, Steph and Shakina, for that amazing presentation. Again, materials will be available following the event. And we're going to move on to our last segment of today's discussion. We will have our campus insights and partnerships featuring Lily from CUNY BMTC. She will give an overview of the Orbit of Care program. And Quaisha Fawcett from CARA, College Access Research in Action, will share some of the partnerships CARA currently has with some CUNY campuses. So I'm going to passing on to Lily, followed by Kwaija.
Sure, good morning. Let me share my PowerPoint. Just one moment. There we go. So good morning, everyone. I'm Lily Yee Elkin. I'm from BMCC. I'm one of the associate directors. So let me just enlarge this so everyone can see this from the admissions office. We started an Orbit of Care project at BMCC this past spring semester. So let me just go over a few slides, and then I'm more than happy to have a conversation if there are questions and how we can collaborate together with external organizations. So here's the main lobby of BMCC. I always like to kind of showcase that for those who've been at the campus and for those who might be interested in visiting in the future. So our main lobby of 199 Chambers Street. So I want to show our mission statement, which we kind of revamped before COVID. I kind of want to hone in on a second statement about how the campus as a college community we're working to strengthen a culture of care inside and outside the classroom. So that way we can assist our students. And that's how during COVID, when we realized, how do we connect with our students virtually? Are we doing a good job or not such a good job during 2020? So that's how our former Vice President of Enrollment Management, we started this pilot program called Orbit of Care. But kind of just give you an overview of the Enrollment Management Division, we have a new acting Vice President, Sanjay Ramdev, and his 5 units that reports to Enrollment Management. We have like a one-stop that we call the Panther Station, admissions, financial aid registers, and a contact center. And we currently have virtual and in-person services available starting the fall 2021 semester, with the in-person where we're staggering staff to come back on campus. So all these 5 units, we became very heavily involved with the Orbit of Care project starting around February, March of 2021. The intent of this is to help our students on board. The new students, obviously, like you all mentioned, they want to have a sense of belonging. Where do they fit in their college? So we realize a lot of students, the problems that we're trying to solve, they get lost, so to speak, right? They don't know what are the pre-enrollment requirements. Now, how does that look like? The 22 steps we always call it at BMCC. How do you break down those 22 steps for new students so that way they can successfully register? From clicking to the I accept button, from paying a commitment deposit, right? Some of you coaches have been talking about, well, how do you navigate to CUNY First? How do you register after you meet the advisor? How do you even connect to the advisor, especially virtually? So we realized those are a lot of the hurdles that our new students had to encounter even before COVID, but it was exacerbated, right, during 2020. So we want to make sure that we have a peer network system set up to individually help students when it kind of stuck with one of their processes. What we were also looking for is, what are the building blocks for success? How do we break up that huge volume of admitted students? So I kind of like to use that pyramid kind of diagram scheme where we start at the bottom, where if there are students who are identify themselves as low needs, like they got it, they know how to manage all their pre-enrollment processes, maybe they don't need that much contact from our coaches, versus those who do raise their hand and say, I need some assistance. I just don't know how to log into my CUNY First account. I don't know how to navigate my student center. I'm a transfer student. Where's my transfer credit evaluation? And those students who are considered high needs, the ones who say, tell me everything that I need to know in order to successfully register. So we hired coaches during the spring semester under the Federal Work Study Program, where I am one of the key trainers in training students from the admissions perspective, as well as I have a co-worker who handles the registration piece, where we train our coaches on how students get admitted, what are all the pre-enrollment requirements, and then how do the registration process is handled seamlessly. So our coaches were working with a caseload of between 200 to 400 new students between May of this year to the end of August. So we realized that we do need to hire more coaches because we only have a handful to really kind of work it through for the volume that we have for the newly admitted population. So we are working in this improvement process as we're refining our steps in the Orbit of Care project. So just want to kind of showcase how we market our Care Coach program. We try to have the students who are under the work study program kind of look at our advertisement saying that we can help students become members of the BMCC family, how our coaches can get inside knowledge of campus services, because as you all know, there's tons, right, of student support services available. But how do you get a new student to kind of understand this and not to overwhelm them? How do you chunk the information and tell them, okay, right now you concentrate on working with advisement, with registrars, but once you start the semester, how you can have support services from the counseling center, from the library, for the tutoring services. So we kind of selling the benefits in order to hire additional care coaches for the team. So that's where I think I want to kind of stop. So that would give some time to ask, and answer any questions that you may all have. So I just kind of check the chat room. Let me just stop sharing so that way I can look at the chat in case there are some questions about the BMCC Orbit of Care program.
There was just a question that went in the chat regarding how do students get connected to a coach for the Orbit of Care?
Good question. I mean, in the admissions office, we run a lot of lists. So we divide up the work among all the coaches. I mean, obviously, let's just say we have 10,000 newly admitted students. We don't have enough coaches to handle all 10,000 students. So we try to break down the list. We look at the students who have committed. So if out of 10,000 students who are admitted, the ones who raise their hand and say, I want to attend BMCC. So they click to the I accept button. And let's just say that's 5,000. So that's how we divide up the work with the 5,000. And then as the coaches start pinging students via texting, emailing, we also use Microsoft Teams a lot to communicate with students. And then also personal phone calls. So the students are rated as low need, moderate need or high need. So the ones with moderate need and high need, they usually get a check-in from the coaches at least once a week. But hey, where are you at the process of registration? So that's how we usually try to connect with our new students. The contact center. Oh, okay. The contact center is our core. So that's where we usually have a team of people that answers the general school's phone number and then refer students to the proper department if they have questions. And I also leave my contact information in my slide deck. So that way others, if you have questions after today's presentation, feel free to connect with me.
Thank you, Lily. Virtual round of applause for you as well. We'll throw it over to Kwaisha.
I will share my screen. All right, good morning, everyone. Let me just open up the chat just in case. All right. So at Cara, I work at Cara. My name is Kwaisha Fawcett. I'm the program manager for College Allies. So in my role, I develop training and facilitate that training for our college level peer leaders and supervisors. And I also provide coaching with the goal of implementing strong, sustainable peer leader programs with those supervisors. So today I'm going to talk a bit about the work that we've been doing at Cara this year with a focus on one of our new peer leader program models that we piloted this summer. I have some notes prepared because Shalima and I are both known as going over time. So I'm going to try to keep in the time. So let's get started. All right, so a bit about Cara. Our mission includes supporting first-generation students, low-income students, and students of color with overcoming barriers to college access and then persisting in college as well. So we do this work by implementing peer leader programs to expand advisement capacity. And we do that in two different ways. We have college access teams that help to expand advisement capacity in high schools, and then we also have CBOs, and then we also have a college success support team who helps to expand advisement at CBOs who are supporting college level students, and then at campuses across CUNY as well. I'm not going to review this slide in depth. You will be able to have access to this PowerPoint. There are some articles that are linked here. And basically what we see is different statistics on students' experiences. We all aware that students face a variety of obstacles that get in the way of them being able to attain their 2-year and 4-year degrees. And like all of you, we train peer leaders to address the number of obstacles that they face with students, to address the number of obstacles that students face, knowing that students don't know what they don't know to even ask for support when they need to. So we really like to focus on helping students to think about the things they don't even know they need to be thinking about, and also then taking action on the things that they know they have to complete in order to successfully get through school. We have a variety of partnerships. We've started our work in 2014, and we've worked with a number of CBOs and campuses, including developing Strive for Success when we first started our work. And as of 2019, we've partnered with 14 CUNY programs and CBOs and launched our first transfer peer leader training program. And then this year, we started a new bridge program, which is what I'm going to talk more about today. So we call this program College Connect. We launched it, technically we started the work this spring, but launched it this summer. And we piloted this program working with BMCC and CCNY. And this program aims to serve students in the summer as soon as they commit to these two schools. So peer leaders are not only trained to support students with matriculation steps, very similar to what the coaches are doing, the care coaches are doing. We're helping them to think about, okay, now that you've gotten over these matriculation steps, what do you actually need to do as you're thinking about the fall? And then we continue that work through their first year of college. So we really emphasize having someone guide them through thinking through tasks they need to complete in order to help them get through their first year of college successfully. Our long-term goal with this program is to institutionalize peer leader support and to start to expand advisement capacity at the institutional level. So students receive support from the day they decide to commit to college through to graduation. Our immediate goal is to address student attrition, which can be costly to both students and institutions. We found that in 2013, a 2013 study that CUNY senior colleges had done, that they lost an average of $12 million as a result of students leaving their college. So it's not only good that we're focusing on this work with the students so that they can continue to get their degrees, but it's also a costly risk for colleges as well. So why peer-to-peer support? We believe in the strength of peer-to-peer support, which allows for an increase in advisement capacity. It allows for advisors to work more deeply with their students and to provide more targeted outreach. Additionally, implementing programs like this allows students to have a point of connection with their campus community earlier. As we all know, COVID-19, the larger pandemic, has made it increasingly difficult for students to engage with their communities, to engage with other students, to engage with staff on campus. And so really starting that early, reaching out to them early allows them to figure out how to maximize on the resources they have available to them, to build those deeper connections, even if it's just with 1 or 2 people in the beginning, That's more than not having any connections. And then receiving guidance on avoiding the common obstacles that students face based on what we've seen kind of like happen in the field. And then ultimately, doing all of this work, we hope to address a sense of belonging and retention, just to make sure, again, that students feel like they belong on campus. This is a space where they can see themselves, and then take advantage of everything that they have available to them so that they can persist. For our training, so we provide about 70 plus hours of training, virtual so far, but we're hoping that we'll be able to do some in-person training in the near future. But we help these peer leaders to develop our professional capacities. And we focus on a lot of topics. Our training is super, super robust. But one of the things I just wanted to pull out is that we place a large emphasis on proactive advising, which is helping students to anticipate obstacles they might face, and then also equipping students with the knowledge and tools they need to navigate campus systems and problem solve as needed. So in our training, we tell our peer leaders, like, it's not just to know about the resources on campus, but you also have to know how to navigate that, and you should be teaching the students how to do that as well. Because you might say, I think we heard this earlier in one of the student panelists had mentioned, students are like, okay, you want me to go to degree works, but what is that? And so we really make sure that our peer leaders know how to navigate degree works and actually take the time to do that when they're meeting with a student, showing them, so that in the future, when they say, hey, if you want to look into the classes that you still need to take or whatever the case is, the student will then have the tools that they need to do and feel empowered to do that kind of work on their own. Our peer leader work is guided by benchmarks, which I'm going to talk about next. And our benchmarks are tasks that students may need to complete at a given point in the semester in order to avoid some of the common persistence pitfalls. So our benchmarks are organized into larger milestone categories. And as you can see on the screen, there are sample questions that peer leaders might address with students, such as, has the student visited office hours? Has the student read through all of their syllabi? Did they claim their college email? Did they complete a tutorial on Blackboard or degree works? Were they selected for verification? Did they finish their TAP application and update it? Others might include, have they visited the Career Center or have they started a resume? Have they thought about the credits that they're registering for, and did they potentially register for unintended credits or credits that are not covered? So we've worked with our partners to think about what are some of the questions students need to be thinking about, and what are some of the obstacles, again, that these students might face. And then going forward, our peer leaders work to address those things with the students. So again, that they can figure things out before it becomes a huge issue. All right. And when you get the deck, you'll be able to see as well some sample benchmarks that we have for September and October that our peer leaders will address with their students throughout the semester. I wanted to share a few anecdotes that have been shared by participants across peer leader programs that we've partnered with. One of the ones that stuck out to me was, a student said, you can always talk to a peer leader, whereas it's sometimes harder or less convenient to meet with an advisor. One of the things that I just want to mention is that peer leaders are not working to replace advisors. They're working in collaboration with advisors. So our peer leaders are supervised by someone on campus who is doing this advisement work. And again, the peer leader's job is to expand advisement at those campuses or those CBOs, and to work with their supervisors to figure out how to best support the students. So working in collaboration. And then I just wanted to leave you with a few things, because now I'm running with my last minute. So if you are interested in replicating this kind of work at your site, at your campus, here are some key questions that you can ask yourself. You really want to think about the trends that you're noticing with the students that you support. You want to think about who can be involved in doing this work, whether that's staff, whether that's students, alumni that you've worked with in the past. Think about what you want your peer leaders to be trained on. How often do you want to communicate with program participants? And then also think about who else is doing this work in the field that you can potentially collaborate with, whether that's at CUNY or other CBO programs. And then finally, just want to end with this, that this work is possible to replicate, and you're not alone. So many folks are doing this in the field. And I found working with supervisors that you can find the time, the resources are out there, and there are humans out there that want to do this work and that are doing this work. And it's all about finding a way to connect those pieces together to make it work for you. All of our programs look very different. And one of the things that we try to emphasize is that there's no right or wrong way to do this. Everybody's at a different point, and everybody has access to different things, and that's completely fine. But what really matters is your commitment to student success and how you're willing to see that commitment through. So I'm gonna end there and see if there's any questions. Maybe like 1 minute. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Kwaisha. It doesn't appear to be any questions. Again, the slide decks from all of the presenters will be made available post this event. So we're going to move forward with our reflection breakouts. As you've seen, there's a lot of support. There's a web of support around students, both from the campus side, CBO side, as well as peer mentorship opportunities. So just want you to take a few minutes to reflect these two questions that can help guide you all. So how can we make sure that these programs are most effective and students are connecting to these resources? In addition to thinking about what ideas may you want to incorporate at your own organizations, either from what you heard from our coach panel or from any of our presenters today. So I'm going to open up the breakout rooms and give you all about 10 minutes to connect, and then we'll come back and close out the event, including some other resources that are happening both in our network partners who are facilitating conversations, and as well as things that the network will be facilitating for the rest of this academic semester. So I will open breakout rooms now.